Just like every parent wants their child to live better than they did, TV networks love it when a spin-off outperforms the hit show it came from. The only problem is, it doesn't happen often. TV history is littered with examples of shows that came from royalty and were promptly flushed. There are hundreds of examples. But this video is about the outliers, the winners, the ones that outshine their parents by winning more awards, running longer, and in some cases, making people forget about the original. Stick around, and while you're at it, tell me in the comments if you liked any of these spin-offs more than the original. Let's start with an absolute banger. Frasier. When Cheers ended in 1993, it was the biggest comedy on earth. 11 seasons, 275 episodes, a record 117 Emmy nominations, 28 wins, and the finale, it drew north of 80 million viewers, a 45.5 Nielsen rating. That's the second most watched series finale in television history. Only MASH did better. So yeah, Kelsey Grammer had Space Needle-sized shoes to fill with his spin-off, Frasier. But if anyone could do it, it was him. You see, Dr. Crane had already beaten the odds. He wasn't supposed to be a mainstay on Cheers. He was supposed to be Diane's rebound after Sam, then gone after 6 episodes. But he stuck. From that catchy theme song, which is actually brilliant lyrically, with the whole "I hear the blues are calling," meaning sad people, and tossed salads and scrambled eggs, referring to his caller's messed up brains, to the excellent performances by David Hyde Pierce, Jane Leeves, John Mahoney, and Perry Gilpin. And don't even get me started on the will they, won't they between Niles and Daphne. It was perfection. Critics and audiences agreed. Frasier, like Cheers, ran for 11 seasons, 264 episodes, so it's a tie on longevity. But here is where the student beat the master. Cheers won 28 Emmys from 117 nominations. Frasier won 37 Emmys from 108 nominations. That's not just more wins, it's a better win rate. Frasier won Outstanding Comedy Series a record-breaking 5 consecutive years from 1994 to 1998. No show before or after has done that. For years, Frasier held the record for the most Emmy wins of any scripted series in history until Game of Thrones finally passed it in 2016. Cheers may be where everybody knows your name, but the trophy case is where Frasier's name is known most. The Jeffersons. Okay, before we get started, it's impossible to completely outdo All in the Family. It was the #1 show in America for 5 consecutive seasons and broke the mold in every way. But its spin-off, The Jeffersons, did as well as any show could in Archie Bunker's shadow, and in some ways, it outpaced its parent show, and that's due to the charisma of its main character, George Jefferson. For years, George was just the neighbor who refused to walk into Archie Bunker's house. He existed completely off-screen. The producers hadn't even cast him yet because Sherman Hemsley was unavailable. He was so perfect for the role, they waited for him. But when he finally appeared, he had to match the energy of the biggest character on TV. But if anyone could go toe-to-toe with Archie Bunker, it was George. The chemistry was so electric that a spin-off wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. And they did it with style. From the gospel choir energy of Moving On Up to the dynamic between George and Wheezy, the show took the racial tension of All in the Family and flipped it into a story of Black success and ambition. Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but that only happened because the Black Panthers influenced Norman Lear to create a show about Black excellence. Anyway, the audience followed them to the East Side, and they stuck around. The Jeffersons became Norman Lear's longest-running show, beating out even the show that spawned it by 48 episodes. With 253 episodes, it became one of the longest-running sitcoms with a predominantly Black cast in TV history. The Facts of Life. When Different Strokes premiered in 1978, it was an instant phenomenon. Gary Coleman was the biggest star in the world. Mrs. Garrett was just the housekeeper who tried to keep Arnold and Willis from destroying the penthouse. So moving her to a quiet boarding school in Peekskill, New York, sounded like a downgrade, but Mrs. Garrett had a secret weapon: the girls. The show pivoted from a standard sitcom to a coming-of-age manual for an entire generation of women, and it worked because it evolved. It went from a large dorm to Edna's Edibles to a pop culture gift shop, constantly reinventing the dynamic between Blair, Joe, Natalie, and Tootie. It wasn't just a show, it was a survival guide for the 80s. The result? Different Strokes burned bright and crashed hard after 8 seasons and 189 episodes. The Facts of Life, however, was the tank that kept rolling. 9 seasons, 201 episodes. Benson. Soap was a fever dream, a wild, controversial parody of daytime dramas involving aliens, demonic possession, and murder. It broke new ground, made censors cringe every night it aired, and honestly, it deserved a better fate. Benson Dubois was the sarcastic butler trying to keep the Tate family alive, but Robert Guillaume's character was too good to just answer the door. The writers made a brilliant pivot. They took the sane man in the insane house dynamic and moved it to politics. And on his spinoff, Benson, he just kept climbing. It started with him running the governor's mansion, but unlike most sitcom characters who stay frozen in time and in their role, Benson evolved. He became the state budget director, then the lieutenant governor, and finally he ran for governor against his own boss. Soap was canceled after 4 seasons and 93 episodes. Benson, however, ran for 7 seasons and 158 episodes. The butler didn't just outlive the family he served, he outranked them in virtually every way, making Benson one of the most impressive spin-offs of all time. Family Matters. Okay, this one is a bit spicy because Family Matters is one of those examples of spin-offs that made people forget about the original. That original was Perfect Strangers, the reliable anchor of ABC's Friday night lineup for 8 seasons. Harriet Winslow was the elevator operator at the Chicago Chronicle. Giving her a family sitcom was a safe, smart bet. But nobody saw the nerd coming. You see, Steve Urkel wasn't supposed to be the star. He was a one-off character in episode 12, Laura's First Date. He was supposed to walk in, be annoying, and never be seen again. But the studio audience cheered so loud when he appeared that the producers knew they had lightning in a bottle. And he took over the world. The show transformed from a blue-collar family sitcom into a live-action cartoon. While Perfect Strangers ran for 8 seasons and 150 episodes, Family Matters ran for 9 seasons and 215 episodes. But it's more than just the numbers. When comparing the shows, Family Matters was a cultural eclipse of sorts. Where Perfect Strangers is a fond memory, Family Matters was a merchandising empire that defined the 90s and became ABC's second longest running sitcom at the time. The Winslows didn't just outlast Balky and Larry, they essentially erased them from pop culture. NCIS. JAG was the definition of a dad show. A solid, sturdy procedural about Navy lawyers that ran for 10 years and 227 episodes. When they introduced a team of investigators in a 2-part backdoor pilot called Ice Queen and Meltdown in April 2003, critics rolled their eyes. They called it Navy CSI and expected it to flop. So when NCIS launched, Special Agent Gibbs had a steep hill to climb. The show premiered in September 2003 to just a 2.73 rating in the key 18 to 49 demo. It finished as only the 23rd most watched show that season, so it was a flop out of the gate, getting crushed by juggernauts like CSI, American Idol, and Friends. But NCIS had something JAG didn't: character dynamics. Instead of just courtroom drama, it gave us the head slaps, the calf pow drinks, and the father figure authority of Mark Harmon. It wasn't just about the case, it was about the family. By season 7 in 2009, NCIS became the #1 drama on all of television. It averaged over 20 million viewers and hit a series high 4.07 rating. JAG ended after 227 episodes, NCIS is currently sitting around 500 episodes over 23 seasons and counting. It spawned its own universe: Los Angeles, New Orleans, Hawaii, and Sydney. For 5 consecutive TV seasons, NCIS was the top-rated broadcast drama, averaging 10 million viewers per episode. More than 300 million people across the world watch the NCIS franchise globally. That's 10% higher than the entire Law and Order universe. The little spin-off that could became arguably the most successful spin-off compared to its parent show, Laverne and Shirley. Happy Days was the juggernaut of the 70s. It was the show that defined cool. Laverne DeFazio and Shirley Feeney were just 2 fast girls from the wrong side of the tracks who went on a date with Fonzie in a 1975 episode. So giving them a show about bottle cappers in a basement apartment seemed like a small idea. But Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams had a physical comedy chemistry that we hadn't seen since I Love Lucy. They were fearless. And America loved the underdogs. For 2 glorious seasons from 1977 to 78, 78 to 79, Laverne and Shirley wasn't just a hit, it was the #1 show in America, actually beating Happy Days in the Nielsen ratings. So think about that. The spin-off beat the parent show head-to-head for 2 consecutive years. Happy Days ran for 11 seasons and 255 episodes, whereas Laverne and Shirley ran for 8 seasons and 178 episodes. So Happy Days definitely has the edge when it comes to longevity and cultural impact. But for 2 years, the Queens of Milwaukee stole Fonzie's crown. Law and Order SVU. The original Law and Order was a machine. 20 seasons, 456 episodes. It was the show that could never be killed. So a spin-off about special victims seemed like just another franchise extension. But SVU had Mariska Hargitay, who, speaking of spin-offs, is the daughter of Hollywood legend Jane Mansfield. You see, the original show was about the plot. The detectives were interchangeable. SVU made it about the people. We watched Olivia Benson grow from a junior detective to the captain. The original Law & Order stopped at 20 seasons and 456 episodes in 2010, before its recent 2022 reboot. SVU, however, is currently on season 27 with over 580 episodes and counting. Mariska Hargitay now holds the record for the longest-running female character in primetime live-action history. SVU didn't just copy the formula, it perfected it and made it personal. And now we're going to end with the granddaddy of all spin-offs. The Tracey Ullman Show was a critical darling on the Baby Fox network in 1987. It was a showcase for a brilliant comedian. To fill the time between costume changes, they hired an underground cartoonist named Matt Groening to draw 30-second shorts about a weird yellow family. They were poorly drawn, and they were just filler. But the filler ended up eating the host. The Tracey Ullman Show produced 81 episodes over 4 seasons from 1987 to 1990. The Simpsons has produced over 800 episodes over 37 seasons from 1989 to now. It's the longest running American sitcom, the longest running American animated program, and the longest running American scripted primetime television series, period. The victory was so lopsided that, get this, Tracey Ullman famously sued Fox in 1992. She argued that since she breastfed those little devils, she deserved a cut of the billions in merchandising revenue. A 30-second bumper became the longest running scripted show in television history and generated an estimated $13 billion in merchandising revenue. The Tracey Ullman Show is a footnote. The Simpsons are forever. Which one of these surprised you the most? And did I miss any? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into TV history.